Another big issue up on Capitol Hill is Dodd-Frank. You mentioned it. You mentioned deregulatory reform. 11, I believe, Democratic senators have signed on to the community banking Dodd-Frank bill that is scheduled to advance, if not this week, out of the Senate early next week. This is something that this administration supports, no? But
absolutely. And, we've worked very closely with Congress on this. A lot of these things are similar to the recommendations that we made in the reports that we delivered to the president. And again, I think the most important issue is we believe in regulation, but we need to have proper and prudent regulation. And as it relates to this, we need to make sure that community banks and regional banks can grow, can lend. That's the engine of growth for our economy, lending to small and medium-sized businesses.
But Democrats like Senator Elizabeth Warren say that this is just only going to help the big banks, that this is just going to let some banks that have been, community banks even, that have been bailed out during the 2008 financial crash. What's your response?
I'm not sure why she feels that way. I don't agree with her on this. Again, I think this is the way bipartisan legislation should work, which has been a compromise and important issues and well thought out.
After it advances out of the Senate, it'll go to the House. I think there's been like several dozen bipartisan wonkier items that have advanced out of the House. Are there any specifics that you would like to see added to this bill that you guys could get on board with once it clears the Senate?
Well, again, one, we're very supportive of the legislation. We're also supportive of certain issues in the House. I think it likely will go to conference. And again, I think the important thing is this can get over the finish line, which will be good for the economy and good for commercial and regional banks.
And then after that, what's next? Is it infrastructure? Is it reforming the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau? What's the next big item for the administration from an economic FinReg perspective?
Well, from my perspective, from Treasury's perspective, the other piece of legislation we're working very closely with Senator Cornyn is on FIRMA, which is basically upgrading CFIUS and CFIUS reform. I believe that this is very important for national security and very important for everything we're doing. So we're hopeful that that'll get through. I think, as you know, we've talked about housing reform. I'm not sure that's something that will get done this summer before the elections, but we are determined to try to get Fannie and Freddie restructured in some format so that we don't put taxpayers at risk. And as you know, we're very focused here at Treasury working closely with the IRS on the implementation of the Tax Jobs Act. So it touches every single aspect of the IRS.